We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the TheP-LotPod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the TheP-LotPodcast. John here, once again with Michael, the TheP-LotPodcast, live once again on your phone. I don't see living rooms because some people are watching us on their televisions. I think everyone's kind of watching us on their phones.
No, I don't think we've reached like that status of televised podcasts like the Pat McAfee show or anything like
that. Right. So yeah, man. I hate being right when it comes to picking the Eagles.
It's not good to be right in that way that it happened. Like that was just you think about the Eagles on Monday and worst regular season, like nothing like outlandish, but nothing like it's been a while since I think I've been that shocked at an Eagles game. Like I couldn't even fully digest like the poor decision making to not just go for it on the fourth down because I was so like I can't believe Barkley just dropped that pass and then all of a sudden they kicked the field goal. Everything was it felt like from dropping the pass to the Falcons were inside the red zone took like real time. It felt like it took like 25 seconds. Like it just was a blink of an eye. Everything happened so quickly, and all of a sudden, the game was about to be lost. And I was truly shocked at how quickly everything just collapsed upon itself. And I was pissed, as everyone I'm sure was, and rightfully was. That was disgusting. That was a horrible loss.
Well, you mentioned the defense. I mean, in-game management. Yeah, it was horrendous. Hindsight being 2020, if they kicked the field goal in the first quarter and just took the points, which going forward did not make any sense to me at the time. Unless you want to just be this hyper aggressive team, like how Dan Campbell runs the Detroit Lions, if that's like your identity,
that's fine then. Like make it your identity.
And then it's like, I may not agree with it, but in terms of having an identity and having a philosophy with how you conduct yourself on offense, then yeah, fine. But like
because then you definitely go for it at the end of the game there. If that's your identity to be aggressive, you're going for it on the last fourth down, 100%. But the problem is trying to live between the margins.
Well, not just that. I really do think that at the end of last year, the Eagles were in a awkward position with head coach Nick Sirianni, where no team has ever fired a coach who's made the playoffs their first 3 years coaching the team. And I can understand Jeffrey Lurie basically being like, I don't want to be George Steinbrenner or a Jerry Jones where I'm going to scare off any potential coach because I'm setting the precedent of, if you screw up once, I'm just going to fire you, and then I get that.
I get it.
But at the same time, you basically now are basically saying we need to like actually fail for me to justify the firing.
Yeah, which that's not good. Like,
I think in fairness to Howie Roseman, they're going out and getting players. Now, are they going out and getting the right players? That's up for debate because I think one thing that got completely glossed over on Monday night was that the defense just didn't play well. And I mean, you saw it in the first half. Vic Fangio was in a 4-2-5 defensive alignment, basically saying to the Falcons that we're stopping the pass. The Falcons barely passed the ball in the in the first half. They just ran it with Bijan. They just got tons. They ate up a bunch of clock, and they picked up a ton of yards because they forced Jordan Davis, 6'5", 350-pound nose tackle, to chase after, the gap he's supposed to cover. And as you well know, Michael, Jordan Davis's conditioning has been an issue ever since he's been drafted. I'm not trying to absolve the players, but when you have a bunch of players with certain skill sets, you need to put your defense around what they do best, as opposed to trying to jam a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many issues.
And plus, I mean, let's be realistic, Michael. At the end of that game, that might have been the worst prevent defense I've ever seen.
Yeah, because
do the Falcons have anybody
so
on defense? Realistically, that's like, that guy is a massive deep threat.
No, like it's like Ray McLeod or like Darnell Mooney.
Well, why did
they
put your safeties 40 yards in the back?
That's no. I listen. I don't disagree with you. The problem, there's a lot of problems, and the biggest problem with this team, obviously, is their run defense, and it's their lack of talent on the defensive line, perhaps as a whole, where, like you said, their four-man fronts were getting gashed, and if they wanted a prayer's chance at stopping the run on Monday, they needed to run a five-man front. And in the few snaps that they did run five-man fronts, they were actually pretty successful stopping the run, but Fangio just didn't call a lot of it. So when you have the run defense that's as piss poor as the Eagles has been the first 2 weeks, you're going to get yourself in a situation where you are going to simply be playing a lot of close games. The Eagles offense is too good for you to like typically get blown out. Like it's too good. It's going to keep you in games. But the problem is that you're never going to blow teams out. Why won't you blow teams out? Because you're going to struggle to get out to a multiple score lead, even remotely, like ever in the game, because other teams can just run the ball down your throat and kill clock and take away possessions from your offense by just milking clock, milking time. So it's going to be hard for you to even get out to a multiple possession lead. And let's say they do. Let's say they do get out to a 2-touchdown lead. Guess what's not going to happen to be able to put them away and blow them out? They're not going to get sacks. They're not pressuring the quarterback, forcing another turnover, or getting sacks to put them behind the sticks, or getting sacks on a big third down. Like it's just there's no resistance up front in the pass rushing game. So if you do force a team into a throwing situation, I can't trust the D line to get home unless they send some zero blitz and there's a free rusher to actually get pressure, get a sack, force the quarterback to make a mistake, and then you get the ball back and add to your lead. So, okay, so if those two options are unlikely, then you look at the third option, which is it's going to be very hard for them to come from behind and win a game. If they're down by 10 points late in the game or something like that, they might need to try some onside kick if they get it to one possession as quick as possible, because they're going to be in a situation where if you're down multiple scores, I can trust the offense to go down and score and get it within one. But I can't trust the defense to stop the run, to get off the field and give my offense an opportunity to get the ball back and score. So it's going to be very difficult for you to blow teams out. It's going to be very difficult to come from behind and win a game. So that kind of leaves you in close games, a lot of close games. And how do you win close games? With good decision making and good clock management. And this head coach is like highly incapable of good late game decision making. We saw it on Monday night. There was just there's no conviction, there's no like identity that this team has, and when you lack those things, it puts you in a spot that just costs you games. Like from the moment that they decided to throw the ball on 3rd and 3 until quite literally the game-losing interception, I don't think they made one decision coaching-wise that was correct. Obviously, Barkley needs to catch the ball, and it's a first down, and the game's over, and it's happy day. However, there is always the inherent risk anytime you throw the ball that it is incomplete for whatever reason. Jalen sails it, Barkley drops it. It literally happened. He dropped the ball. There's an inherent risk that you remove if you just simply hand the ball off or whatever. And if you run the ball on 3rd and 3, I'm not even talking about the clock because of how quickly the defense blew it, that I don't even know if the clock would have been a factor, but let's say you run it, clock runs. Barkley was averaging 9 yards a carry on that drive. You're telling me that on 3rd and 3, if you give it to him twice, he's not getting 3 yards? You could have tush pushed it twice, you probably would have got the first down. Anything. You could have done so many variations of running the football 2 times on 3rd and 3 and then 4th and whatever it was, and I could
Well,
almost guarantee you were getting the first down.
well, there's one guy we didn't mention, and that's Kellen Moore. And I know Kellen Moore has received a lot of praise for adding motion into the offense and how the offense has done. Jalen Hurts has looked better as opposed to worse with Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. But Michael, like, this kind of goes back to Sirianni. Is Sirianni telling him we got to throw it on 3rd down, and then he's calling a pass play,
No, I think
or
it's
is Kellen Moore like? Is this Kellen Moore doing what got him fired from the Cowboys, which was passing in situations he should have been passing in?
I think it's Sirianni saying, "We're not gonna go on 4th down, so I need this 3rd down," and Kellen Moore going, "Okay, I
We
like
don't
my
know
odds."
that.
We don't know that, but all we do know is that they didn't go for it on 4th down. So if your plan was to not go for it on like, you don't call that pass play if you have the plan to go for it. You know what I'm saying? You're not
And I
going
think,
for it on 4th
and I
down if you're
also
gonna call
think
that.
too, yeah, and I agree with that. So I think my point is
That's my
that
point, and that stems from Sirianni. That absolutely does, 'cause he defended the decision, said it was his decision 4 times over throughout the course of the week, saying that he only feels better about his conviction to not go for it and kick the field goal because he did a lot of studying across the league to seeing other teams in similar situations, and his ass came away that it was intelligent to kick the field goal, even though the win probability, according to Next Gen Stats, dropped literally 12% after the Eagles made the field goal. They kicked the field goal, and their win probability went from, like, 96 to 85. That tells you all it needs to tell you. Like, there's it honestly boggles my mind that, a team can preach analytics and, like, he preaches analytics a lot, but then for him to say, like, "Oh, it's not just about the analytics, it's about my studying and what I look in." So now you're telling me that you don't really believe in analytics, because if you did, you would've went for it without thinking twice, and
I
that goes
so
against
I
the front
truly think
office.
so. I I knew that there was some sort of issues between him and Howie when Howie went on McAfee's show after the draft. And you know how on McAfee's show they make fun of Nick. They have I forget the guy's name, but he does a dead on impression of Nick Sirianni.
Okay.
And he was like, I think Pat McAfee or AJ Hall, I think it was Pat McAfee said something to Howie like, "Oh, well, you're the one that hired Sirianni." And then Howie actually just said point blank, "I didn't hire Sirianni, Jeffrey did."
Yeah, I mean, so if they're not seeing eye to eye, it's not a good thing, but, like, my
But now here's the thing with Howie
ugh.
though. Like if I find it very hard to believe that Howie has zero input on who the coach is when he's actually
Yes, like, he
spending lots of Jeffrey Lurie's money, using all these draft picks on players, but he can't pick the guy that's going to put the whole
Yes,
package
because
together.
if Howie was hell-bent on not keeping Sirianni, he wouldn't be here. Like, that's just simply the
But I
fact of
would
the
not be
matter.
surprised if when Howie after 2020, when basically everyone's like, Howie, we appreciate you helping us win the Super Bowl, but after what firing Doug and the Wentz debacle, that maybe they should have someone else kind of run, or he should take a step down or a step back. I mean, you have Louis Riddick on national television when they played the Seahawks, basically saying, "Oh, I could do a better job
Campaigning
than
for
Howie."
the
He's
GM
like, "Oh,
job,
I could do
yeah.
a better job than Howie. This asshole fired me.
Yeah,
This guy's an idiot."
yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah. Listen, it just back to oh my god, it was just so frustrating, and it's so you don't go for it, which is 10 out of 10 times the wrong decision. We can talk about the stats that point that when you're down 3 in that situation, teams that are down 3 tend to score 3 more than anything because you have the ball, you're down a field goal, and that's saying you're down a field goal because the Eagles don't pick up the 4th down. That's saying they get stuffed twice on 3rd and 3 and 4th and whatever. Falcons get the ball inside their own 10, and they need to drive down to get into field goal range. You're telling me that the Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins, that they felt a little bit better about moving around, but still they had such trouble throwing the ball? You're telling me that once they got into field goal range, they weren't just gonna like, "Okay, let's slow it down. Let's line up what we wanna do, and we'll go play overtime." Because that's exactly what was gonna happen. They weren't gonna try to push the ball with Kirk and go for a touchdown when he didn't need to. They were gonna play for the field goal. It's what teams usually do. Eli Manning has that famous quote from his first Super Bowl win where he says, like, "Thank God we were down 4 because if we were down 3, we would have played it totally different and kicked the field goal and given the ball back to Brady or whatever." But he's saying we were down 4 that led us to push for the end zone, and
Yeah,
it got us the
because
touchdown.
exactly because when you're down 3, you don't want to force it and turn over, and
No,
then
you wanna get to where you wanna go, and depending on time, maybe you take a shot or 2, but you really don't wanna push it, but it's teams that are down, like, 6
so
that tend to
on
get
the
7.
so on the 3rd and 3, they called that swing pass to Barkley,
A
but
little sprint out that they worked before, and it worked again, you just need to catch it, but there's the risk.
but if you want to do an outside run, obviously the pitch doesn't work. We see in the NFL, like pitching the quick pitches,
Some teams run the pitch well, the Eagles are not one of those teams.
and it's like, and then I think about it, and I'm like, in my sicko demented head, I'm like, you're that close, and you've got 10 men in the box. What if you just run an end around with like Britton Covey, and have him just tell him
John,
run to the pylon as fast as you can,
anything truly would have been better than a
especially
pass.
on that drive, Michael, because the Falcons
They
were
were gashing
gassed.
them.
They were
Dude,
gassed.
John, they just got stopped on 4th down, like, the game should have been over. Like, that should have been it. The
The
Eagles stopped
last
them on
thing,
4th down, it
you
should
play
have been
football, the
done.
last thing you want to do when you're exhausted is have to run to the sideline as to beat someone to the corner.
Mhm. Yeah, it
Even if
just ugh.
it's crazy. Even if he would have gotten out of bounds and stopped the clock on 3rd down, still picking up the 1st down, you still might win the game because you just kneel it 3
You just
times.
need to get the first. Yeah, and then, like, obviously, prevent defense seemingly never works, so, like, Fangio
Well, prevent defense works if it's like 4th and 15 and it's the last play of the game and they have to go for a Hail
yeah,
Mary.
prevent defense
Then it
works if
works.
you're up by 2 possessions, but when it's just basically we have 0 pass rush, so we're committing to just wasting 4 guys and sending everyone way back. Dude, any veteran quarterback that's been in this league for a long time, especially, like, Kirk Cousins might be the most of all the veterans to, like, cook in those situations where it's like, "You're gonna give me all day, and you're gonna give me guys open below all your, deepest D-backs." It's gonna be cooking every single time, and he cooked all his way down the field. And then my final gripe is I'm really gonna like, it's a shame I have to blame Jalen a little bit, but I just do because they get the ball back. They need a field goal to win the game. Their first down play, Maybe the best play you could have run in that situation. You got 14 yards over the middle, Dallas Goedert, timeout, great job. Could not have gone better. You're about 15 to 20-ish yards away
with a
from
timeout.
getting with a timeout, from getting into, like, Jake Elliott bomb field goal
30
range,
seconds
which
left.
we know he can make. 30 seconds of plenty of time. Y Kellen Moore, you need to use the whole field. That route concept you see on the All-22, you got 2 corner routes, and you have Britton Covey kinda going over the middle, and then 2 checkdowns that were totally blanketed. The best throw to maybe make was a rocket to Covey with the dude kind of on his back, but even then, that wasn't the safest throw. I don't love
Jalen
the
could have
play
ran,
call.
and Jalen could have ran. They could have
You
clocked
could have
it.
done anything, again, and the
Jalen could have
problem
ran
is
it, got to like the Falcon 40 or 30, like let's say like the Falcon 40, clock it, 18 seconds left. You can run a play down the middle,
the
and then
problem is
timeout, and then and then you can just try to go for the field goal. I mean,
the problem is that they called a play that was designed to get it all, to get everything you needed to get into Elliott's field goal range. They called like a 20-yard play when you just didn't need to run it. You could have ran something over the middle, a deep dig or, a drag route or something, a drag route with misdirection so you could hit a guy in stride who can catch and run for like 9 yards, and all of a sudden you're really feeling it at that point. But you're calling a play that's designed where it's wherever the ball goes, unless it's a check down, which again, both were extremely well covered. You're trying to get everything like, all right, after 2 plays, we're all of a sudden gonna be in field goal range and everything's great. It's like, relax, there's no need to push. And that's where this kind of falls back on the quarterback because Jalen Hurts, outside of the Super Bowl, and maybe it doesn't even count because there was 5 minutes left, anytime he needs to put together like a game tying drive, kinda no matter how much time is left, as long as it's under 2 minutes, he treats it like there's 10 seconds left, and it's a problem that he's had where he feels he needs to get everything as soon as possible. He forces things, and he's trying to make the big play instead of just slowly, mm, you know, methodically driving down the field the way you can in those situations. Like, he had the time to just airmail that one out of bounds and get rid of it. Throw it at the feet of Saquon Barkley, live to play another down. I know you don't wanna take a sack, but Jesus Christ, the sack would have been better than to forcing it into double coverage. Like, even if that throw was perfect, it's still not gonna be completed. That Devonta Smith wasn't even remotely open. You want him to go make a play, it's not there wasn't 3 seconds left. It wasn't 4th down where you just had to get rid of it. Like, it was 1st down, 30 seconds left, you had a timeout, there was just no
well,
reason
that's still
to
Jalen Hurts
push
is
it.
kind of a gunslinger, Michael. Like I agree with you. It's
But
stupid.
he in those situations, it baffles my mind because, like, he won't do it any parts during the game, but it's, like, under 2, he's like, "Alright, we need to go. We have no." It's like, you do have time, man. It's my one issue with him that
That
it's
play
something
looked
that
like
he hasn't
that.
gotten better
Honestly,
at.
that play was kind of a Sirianni play. You have everyone going to the sidelines. You're cutting off the middle of the
And there was
field.
nothing over the middle, and,
But
like,
it
that's you
wasn't. But
had
it
a
was.
timeout, you didn't
But
need to.
you said bad in-game management earlier. You have a timeout and you have
Yes.
enough time left, and you're in the spot of the field. And you need a field goal. Now, if they needed to get a touchdown, Michael,
You need chunk plays, you need bigger
then
chunk
like
plays.
yeah, then the throw to
On
Devontae
first
Smith
down,
kind of makes sense because
you
you
already
need.
got the chunk play. You already got 14 yards on first down. You like, starting at the 30, you're in great
Why not
spot to
have Dallas
kick a
Goddard
field
go? Why
goal.
don't you just have Dallas Goddard go over the middle and
Again,
force like a nickel corner or a dime corner
out physical him, that's
to
not
have to
hitting.
make an open field tackle on Dallas Goddard, which is not it's
Not an
not
easy
a
task.
easy thing to do.
No, and it's just it's frustrating because even after everything, they were still in a position to win the game, and you have
Dude,
Jalen who freaks out.
thank God the Eagles like did not trade up to get Brock Bowers because we would be so frustrated about
Oh, for them not using them.
how they would not know or how to figure out how to use Brock Bowers.
Yeah, I mean, like,
This is
just
the second coming of like Tony Gonzalez. Like he's
yeah.
going to be
So the
or Gronk or Travis Kelsey. Like anyway,
yeah, so the
let's move
final
on. Let's move on to the what
yeah.
happened Thursday, and I think this is just kind of like my whole take. We talk about this with Thursday. So the Jets played their hated rival, the New England Patriots. They have only beaten the Patriots once at home in like the last 10 years or some 15 years or some absurd statistic. And the degenerates were using that as justification for taking New England, getting the 6.5. Yeah, that only worked when they had like Tom Brady, and like the Jets were also a complete and utter dumpster fire.
Yes, which hey, they still are, but
Well, they're
they have
mediocre.
they have
There's a difference between
competent
being
quarterback
mediocre
play.
and a dumpster fire. The Panthers are a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
They're
they
not
have
the Panthers.
quarterback play at least. The
So
Jets,
yeah,
that is.
so my takes with the Jets, it's Aaron Rodgers looks like he's at 75, 70% like capacity. A diminished Aaron Rodgers, Michael, is like better than 2/3 of the quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
he looked as accurate as ever on Thursday, which is I think something that lacked a bit in his final season in Green Bay. Like just whether he was just banged up or whatever was going on, it didn't feel like it was watching the Aaron Rodgers of old. But Thursday felt like okay, like this is what we've come accustomed to seeing for the last like 20 years with Aaron Rodgers. And yeah, he was really, really good. You know, even with Garrett Wilson getting absolutely blanketed by Christian Gonzalez, who, by the way, I think is probably the best corner in the league. Just totally takes out number ones like
I don't know.
kind of consistently.
Him and Patrick Sertan are like kind of.
Listen,
It's funny.
there's the
The two
three of
best corners
him.
in the league, Michael. The two worst teams in the
Yeah,
NFL.
you have him, Sauce, and Sertan as like your top three, but Gonzalez, he's a different animal, man. Oh my god. But regardless, Rodgers was cooking. He was cooking outside the pocket too, like, he was getting mobile, and it felt like every time he left the pocket, he would just find someone wide open down the field for a nice little chunk play, and it
I
was
think if
yeah.
you're for betting, I was really tempted to do the Alan Lazard plus 510 on FanDuel for anytime touchdown because
Yeah, that's
Rodgers
those
is
odds aren't
boy.
gonna be like that anymore. Oh, well, Lazard's gonna be in, like, the plus, like, 200s now to score, the way that
Of course.
Rodgers favoring his guys, but, yeah, I mean, it was pretty much Jet domination, and as much as, like, I'm saying, like, "What's Brissett doing in there? What's the point? What's the point?" You do see Jacoby Brissett takes a beating every week, every game, because the Patriots, their offensive line is just not that good. Like, going into that game, Ramondre Stevenson had 202 rushing yards through the first 2 games, but he had 205 rushing yards after contact. Insane stat that he has more yards after contact than yards because he's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage so many times. That's insane. How many times, and he's just breaking a tackle and making a play. Like, he's really their run game is truly basically all him at this point. And then Jacoby Brissett, every time he takes a beating when he drops back.
Well, the
So
good news for New England is now you already have the quarterback that you have the future. When they go into the draft next year, if there's a quarterback teams are going to want, they can move back, get some offensive linemen.
yeah, they gotta be smart. They gotta attack that
So
offensive line
like,
position.
I feel like if you're a Patriots fan, like it's a clear rebuild, but surface level, I think they're still doing it the right way. You mentioned like, oh, why aren't you playing Drake May? Well, you know, I think it's an interesting debate. Like, oh, when do guys play? When shouldn't they play? Um, we'll talk about it when we do the Bears and the Colts.
Yeah.
Obviously, Caleb Williams is ready to play, but you don't want to get him murdered either. And you listen, like I think the Patriots and the Bears are in two different like
Yes, very
positions.
different.
Where I give the Patriots a little bit of a pass because they're in a complete rebuild. The Bears have been in a complete rebuild. This is year 3 of their
Well,
rebuild.
it's the Bears, like the way well, I guess we'll talk about it more. We can talk about it now. So the Bears, like their problem is that they built the rest of the team. Like they built it up with all the skill positions that they decided to add, where it's like if you're not gonna play Caleb Williams, it feels like you're just wasting time. Like, you went out and added Keenan Allen. You went out and drafted Rome Odunze. You went out and overpaid DeAndre Swift. Like, you got a whole, like, armory of weapons to surround Caleb Williams with that you forgot to actually address what's always gonna be the most important with a young quarterback, which is the offensive line. And the interior offensive line is, I think, one of the worst interior offensive lines, if not the worst I've ever seen in my lifetime. Like, I don't think it's ever.
I would say like I've seen some Raider teams
I
like
guess,
those.
but John, like, we watched Sunday night last week, and it was like, dude,
Ah,
it's like they never saw a stunt before. That right guard is one of the worst
well,
players I've ever
dude, like
seen.
did you saw what happened last year with the Seahawks? Like we were like, Geno Smith is gonna die, right? And
Yeah.
then it's because of it's they're not good. Number one, I'm not saying that they're good. The offensive line for the Bears
No,
is
because I watched the center get put on his butt by a blitzing linebacker, like, multiple times a game, and it's like, "Dude, you need,
that's
like,
preparation.
you're
That's
just getting."
coaching. That is coaching,
Yeah, but
Michael.
it's also, like, you just can't get put on your butt like that, and it's like, people are like, "Oh," the Twitter clip was going viral because it was Rome Odunze's dad. He was actually coming at Dan Orlovsky, who said Odunze can't get separation, and it was Odunze going open, and Caleb didn't throw him the ball, but it's because
He's running for his life.
Caleb had pressure, like, beaming down his neck, and he just tried to get it out in the flat, and the ball was getting batted down because there was no time to do, like, anything else. But the biggest play on that clip is just watching the center get literally, like, forklifted by a blitzing
Yeah,
linebacker.
it looked like the video of the guy filming the Cybertruck, and then you see the guy getting run over by the car right
Yes, in
afterward.
the background. Yes, exactly,
Yes.
and it's just like, it's insane. But, like, the better allocation of resources would have been, let's not pay DeAndre Swift, like, $8 million a year, and, like, also, let's not just throw everything at Keenan Allen to get him here, because Keenan Allen, although he had, statistically insane season last year as Justin Herbert's virtually only target, he's an old receiver, and I'm not saying it was, like, a bad idea to go get the veteran receiver, but, he's gonna miss his now 2nd straight game, um, as an aging wideout, and again, I don't think it's terrible to have him, but when you're employing someone at this age that clearly, injuries have been a problem and are seemingly going to be a problem, hindsight, it just would have been better if you rocked with DJ Moore. You still could have drafted Rome Odunze, but instead wanted to build up the offensive line in free agency, add some guys there,
Well,
and
they
now
took
all of a
Darnell
sudden
Wright over Jalen Carter, which I know doesn't really improve the offensive line, but that's the problem with Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles
he's
is like
polarizing. Like,
well, no, he's like a wannabe Howie Roseman. Like he makes these big moves, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, look at the Bears! Look at they made these moves," and like they a lot of them just backfire on him. And like
well,
them
hopefully the
hiring,
Eagles aren't in that same position right now.
what's that?
Hopefully the Eagles aren't in that same position right now,
No,
which I
but I
fear
mean,
they are.
well, I think that the Eagles issue. I think it's. I said this to one of my friends the other day, and I said I never understood the Eagles' obsession with finding the next Andy Reid, and they've completely ignored like finding the next Jim Johnson, especially since Jim Johnson's proteges have had a lot of success with their defenses recently,
Yeah, I
like
mean,
namely
yeah,
Sean
Spags.
McDermott and Spags.
Spags, he's the big
Spags.
one. Yeah. When I look
And
at, yeah. Ugh.
and it's funny because you're never going to find another Andy Reid.
Mhm.
That's not going to happen. I'm sorry. Instead, they tried it with Doug, and they got a Super Bowl. They tried it with Chip Kelly, like we're gonna get this offensive innovator like Andy Reid. Andy Reid was thought to be an offensive innovator, Michael, when he got
Mhm.
hired by the Eagles. And then Nick Sirianni, we're gonna hire a young guy like Andy Reid, who's gonna like teach discipline and we're gonna be more prepared and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Um,
anyway,
so yeah. The yeah. Yeah. We don't need to get into the deeply rooted issues of the
no, we'll
Eagles right
just
now.
talk about the Eagles at the end of the
Yeah.
show. But let's
So, all right.
But
let's
let's
get to the.
before we go to football, do you want to talk about the Phillies?
Oh yeah, so the Phillies, they clinched the playoffs on Friday
Wow.
with a very nice complete win. They've yet to clinch the division. They need to do that with a win today. Be nice. Wheeler on the mound. Sunday
If they
Night
win today,
Baseball.
do they clinch the division?
Yes, they do. Um, the Phillies is kind of the same old. Like Rangers still ramping himself up. Like the velocity was the highest it's been. Like it's truly like this is his spring training, which is I just don't think you're going to get amazing results sometimes, which is like fine.
You're not going to
Um,
get amazing results throwing him against playoff teams that are fighting for their playoff spot.
exactly. And you look at the bats, and the bats have been like fine. Like I don't know, every nothing's really insane that's happening with the Phillies. Like it's almost like the relievers are getting their bad outings out of the way now, like Orion Kerkering yesterday. Um, what I think was the most interesting part of what I've seen from the Eagles, um,
Phillies.
or sorry, from the Phillies, is that what Rob Thompson said about the playoff roster. So I've been cooking up playoff rosters. How bad do I really want Austin Hayes on there? How much like who do I prefer over Cody Clemens, Weston Wilson? And I gave you the arguments for like, oh, I think it should be Clemens, but feels like we're nearing that they might not need to make the choice, and Rob Thompson may decide to take the extra bat over the extra arm this postseason, this time around. So it would be 14 hitters with 12 pitchers as opposed to the even 13-13 split. And it made me think, and it's like, you know what? I think it's fine because you look at the back end of the pitchers that would be on the playoff roster. What is the point in having two of Taiwan Walker, Spencer Turnbull, Max Lazar, or Tyler Gilbert? It's like having 2 of those 4 guys, it just feels redundant, you know, like, you need about 1 to 2 guys to be able to just get outs when the game's kinda lost, and one of those 4 guys is fine, and the other guy in that situation can probably go ahead and be Tanner Banks, who really hasn't been getting many high leverage outs. Not anything wrong with it, it's what he is. Those are important pieces to a World Series team to be able to get outs that aren't the most important just to save guys' arms and stuff. So I don't think it's a bad idea to have, you know, one of Walker, Lazard, Gilbert, or Turnbull, depending on whatever you want to do, matchups, whoever's the hell, who cares? But being able to have that extra bench bat, so now your entire bench, if say you're starting Rojas and Marsh in the outfield, now you have a whole bench of Edmundo Sosa, Austin Hayes, Cody Clemens, Weston Wilson, and then your backup catcher Garrett Stubbs. So I think having that extra bat to play with will allow Rob Thompson to be a little bit more aggressive with the bats in terms of pinch hitting with, lefty righties. And we know who we're talking about here with Stott and Marsh and Rojas and all of those guys and the inverse when they're not in the lineup and stuff. And I think that's good. That played a big reason as to they won, um, why they won Friday. He was aggressive with some pinch hitting, and it's why they were in the game again. Yes, it's just like if he's gonna go ahead and do it, I'm all for it. I'm down for it. So I'd be very much okay with
I
keeping the
do
extra
think with
bat
the
this
what,
year.
what you're saying with the extra arm, like carrying an extra arm, I do think
Mhm.
that I guess the counter to that would be like, well, what happens if Zach Wheeler or Aaron Nola gets shelved and you need someone to eat innings? Realistically, if Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler get shelled, Michael, you're not going to win.
You're not it's hard to win a game. Like, you
You're
have look, and the way I look at it is you can't afford a Wheeler bad start. Like, that's something that just really
you're
can
a
never
pitching
happen.
team. That's what the Phillies are. The Phillies are
Right.
a
You
pitching
you have
team.
you have between 1 and 3 bad starts reserved for Nola, Ranger, and Sanchez. If you eclipse that number more than 3, and if, like, Wheeler does one of them, you're not in a good spot because I'll be honest, I'm expecting at least one Nola start to maybe not be so great. I'm expecting a Christopher Sanchez start where he maybe gets hit around. I'm expecting a Ranger start where it's a little bit more like pulling teeth and he can't go deep into a game. And, like, that's fine. You just need to have the arms to deploy. And listen, when you trust as many bullpen arms as the Phillies trust right now, which is Carlos Estevez, Orion Kerkering, Matt Strahm, Jose Alvarado, Jose Ruiz, Jeff Hoffman. That's 6 guys that I just named you that the Phillies trust to get
I
big
would
outs in
like
a
to
game.
see Alvarado get some work
He looked really
before.
good yesterday, and he's honestly Thursday he looked like okay, but for the most part, the last since he's come back, since going home to Venezuela to check on his family, I felt that since that time he's looked pretty good. He's looked pretty close to being his normal self. His like, and the biggest thing is his command is so much better. Like he's putting that cutter exactly where he wants to put it, and the fastball velocity is up back at 99 again. Like it looks a lot better, and yeah, I have no complaints with that.
So let's just kind of address the elephant in the room, Michael.
Hmm.
So the Phillies can win the division by they just have to win one of their next 6 games, 7 games,
Yeah,
pretty
just
much.
don't do the
Right
terrible.
now, as fun, there's no advantage really having the 1 seed versus the 2 seed, other than if you face the 1 seed
Hmm.
as the 2 seed in the playoffs, they're going to get the extra home game, and you're not. But let's be realistic. If the Phillies have the 1 seed, the way the seeding kind of stands, is it still the winner of San Diego, Arizona would play the
Yeah,
Phillies?
the way it's currently slotted. And listen, this could all be extremely volatile because everything's just so tight, especially hey, both leagues really, everything's so tight. But you look like the Padres, they seem again, nothing's locked in, but they are 2 games up on the Diamondbacks for the first wild card spot. However, those teams play each other in a 3-game series to end the year, so that could very easily flip. Um, the Diamondbacks are a game up on the Mets for the final wild card spot, and then the Mets are 2 games up on the Braves. So the Braves, listen, the Braves aren't out of it. I saw a Braves fan tweet, uh, you know, the 2021 Braves were 2.5 games worse. Obviously, they had the division locked up, but it was like the 2021 Braves went 8-1 to finish the year. And like if the Braves simply went 8-1, I'd assume they're probably making up the 2 games and making the playoffs. So that's a whole nother thing. But as it's currently slotted, the 4-5 would be the Padres and the Diamondbacks, and the winner of that series would go play the 1 seed, which is currently the Phillies. But again, the Mets are only a game behind the Diamondbacks, and only um, only 3 games behind the Pod. Like everything's so tight that a lot of stuff really could jumble. My ideal scenario is to just avoid the Diamondbacks as long as I possibly can. I don't want to see them ever. Uh, I'm actually I'm legit scared of them because I am a guy that I welcome a satisfying victory. It's like when the Sixers go on their run eventually, hopefully, if that ever happens, I'd love to beat the Celtics. That would do me so much. That would make me feel so good if they beat the Celtics on their way. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like the Phillies, I welcomed playing the Braves. It was giving me so much satisfaction. They've done it twice already. I don't need to see it a third time because God forbid, I don't need to see the Braves. That's fine. The Diamondbacks, I genuinely do not wanna see because that place is a morgue, it is a house of horrors, I hate it out there, I've never liked watching them play out there, and it's only become so much worse since last October. I would actually be petrified that if they were 1-1 going to Arizona, they just simply don't come back, and I'm terrified of that.
Well, and not just that too. So right now, like for the Diamondbacks, like Corbin Carroll, he's 100% healthy. That shoulder's 100%
Yeah,
fine
they're
now.
just
He
they're
is
so annoying.
raking right now, Michael, and that's.
It's so annoying,
I
John.
remember he was hurt. They beat them without Corbin Carroll. Essentially, the Diamondbacks beat the Phillies without Corbin Carroll.
Yeah,
Basically,
he was like he had a good game 7, but like he kind of wasn't good for the rest of that series. Like they beat him when Christian Walker sucked the entire series. Like it was just Listen,
It was
we
a Phillies
about
choke, not a Diamondback
we talk
victory.
about why they lose. They lose because of their bats. That's why the Phillies lose. So um,
Uh, yeah. So,
yeah,
yeah, we'll see with the Phils. I
we'll
think.
see. Clinch the division today. That'd be fun. Be a nice way to end the
Do you
Sunday.
feel worried about having that break because the only team that seemingly has succeeded with the
You say
break has been
that?
the Astros?
No, because they're making it such a big deal. You know what I'm saying? Like, how many more times do I got to hear Ken Rosenthal tell the story that, you know, oh, he said how Brian Snicker blamed the Braves' playoff woes on the 5-day break and how the Phillies, like, scoffed at that and were like, "That's just disrespectful to us, like, give us credit, yada, yada, yada." They wanna get the 5 days off and win and go to the
Well, no, they
NLCS.
need the 5 days off to
No,
heal
that
up.
listen, they wanna like, there's the personal, like, we wanna do it so we can prove to the Braves and prove to the rest of the league that it's not some disadvantage to get the bye because you have days off. Like, they wanna have it, and yes, you're right. They need it more than just about anybody. It'd be awesome to get all their pitchers some extra time off because we know how they've been trying to juggle, the arms at this point, and also, like, Bryce Harper, simply his elbow is, like, on fire, and he's fine, like, he's hitting home runs, everything looks fine, but he's just in a lot of pain. Bryce has a high pain tolerance, we know this. Um, you look at, like, Bohm, who's still, like again, he looks fine. Everyone looks fine, everyone that's healthy and is playing is fine, but it's just I think the time off would really just benefit them, you know? And
Well,
this isn't
if
5
you
days of
can
doing nothing,
if you
it's
clinch
5
a
days of,
bye and then
practicing.
clinch the division, you can sort of give Bryce a pseudo 10-day IL stint.
Yeah, and if that's gonna help or not, it might not. It might be better just to let him play in the regular season,
Well,
give him
no,
a
I would
couple
like
at
to get
bats, and then
Bohm
pull
at
him.
first, and then give one of your bench bats, your key bench guys, some at bats, so they're ready for
Yeah,
this.
I
You
think
know,
what they might do, and I honestly, this is I think what I'd be most for is like you get 4 at bats a game. Give Bryce 2 at bats and then pull him. Like let
okay.
because I don't need Bryce to like be him not like playing a game for like 15 days before the NLDS. Like I don't need that. So give him a couple at bats, sit him down, say don't do anything stupid on the bases, don't do anything stupid in the field. Just get some at bats. Keep your game speed up to date, and let's get going here. But again, one thing at a time. They need to win today and to officially clinch the division. Um, and then just take care of your business to get the seeding you want, and hopefully things fall where they may, where you get to play like the Brewers or something in the NLDS.
Okay. Yeah, man, I'm excited.
Because God forbid.
So it's that time again, Michael.
It is about that time again.
We took a bath last week with the picks, like everybody else in the betting world.
Hmm.
What was our? Do you have our records from last week before we
Uh,
jump into week three?
yeah. So so last week, our total weeks, we sit currently at a pretty 500. Both of us are 15, 15, and 1 against the spread through 2 weeks. That one being a push in that Seattle New England game.
You know what? I'll take that.
Yeah, listen, we didn't get ravaged. Like I went 6, 8, and 1. You went 7, 7, and 1. First week I went 9 and 7. You went 8 and 8. Listen, it's a crapshoot those first couple weeks. So to be able to be sitting pretty at 500, it's not the end of the world. It's hard to predict, every game. And how many of those games that we predict that we're getting wrong is like, huh, stay away from this one. And like, because we're picking it because we have to. But anyways, week 3 is upon us. We are a mere, what is that, 3 hours away from kickoff.
We are 3 hours away from kickoff. Do you want to start us off
First
with our first game?
game we have on the docket here is the Los Angeles Chargers in Acrisure Stadium. I wonder,
I can't
do
believe it's
people know
called
what that
that,
is?
dude.
Pittsburgh, not Heinz Field. Take on the Steelers. Steelers are 2.5-point favorites. A lot of people loading up on the Chargers. The Chargers, there is a lot of concern currently because Justin Herbert is like definitely not 100% healthy at the very least. dealing with, is it a high ankle sprain or just
High
an
ankle
ankle sprain?
sprain.
High
He's going to
ankle
try and play
sprain.
today.
He's planning to play. They're gonna dress 3 quarterbacks, which is different than having the emergency quarterback because the emergency quarterback can only play if the first 2 get injured, but they're dressing both Easton Stick and Taylor Heineke today in the event, I guess, that if Herbert is unwell and can't play, they can have the option, or if Easton Stick isn't playing well, they can pull him to put in Taylor Heineke, vice versa, have the option to choose what quarterback you like to put in instead of, forcing yourself as, okay, this guy's the backup and whoever the emergency is can't play unless the backup gets hurt. So I guess smart. I don't know. Listen, all week I've been on the Chargers, I think, to win this game. And then this Herbert news comes out. Not like the Chargers been slinging it all over the field anyways. They have been running the ball, but if Herbert's ankle is really this bad and they're going to become one-dimensional, it's making me rethink. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts?
I got so here's my take. This is my take on the Steelers before I even talk about the Chargers with their health concerns.
Yeah.
They're like the fakest 2-0 team I've seen
The
of all the
Steelers?
2-0 teams this year. Like watching them offensively, Michael, is like watching someone try to perform brain surgery with plastic utensils. They are so poorly coached on offense. We know Justin Fields blows, right?
Yes.
There's like the chicken's got to come home to roost. Like this is kind of like my point is like they're at home. Justin Fields has not done enough to like be the QB1 in Pittsburgh. They still got Russ.
No, like they want to play Wilson. He's
They
just
want to play
hurt.
Russ. That's the thing. Like because he's not
They
good.
they haven't even said they wanted to play Fields. Like they're just doing it. And I
You
feel as
know, and
though as
and
soon
like
as
now to me, Michael, it's going to be like, who do you trust? Because they're basically like the same team with the if you take the quarterbacks out. The Chargers are very good defensively so far. They made the Raiders look really poor on offense, and we were like, "Oh, Raiders are going to be a bottom 3 team." And then you saw what happened to them against the Ravens offensively. They were cooking.
yeah.
They're cooking. And now like obviously the Panthers blow and then they roughed up the Panthers so bad that
Mhm.
they benched Bryce Young because of it. So
Yeah.
the Chargers as a defensive team are pretty good so far, right? I would say. They've looked good. Steelers, we know they're great on defense. I'd give the advantage to the Steelers defense. That's neither here nor there. I trust Jim Harbaugh. Like this is such a Tomlin loss, Michael. This just looks like a Tomlin loss. And we've
Yeah.
seen it happen so many times. That's why everyone's picking the Chargers. I'm taking
Yeah.
the Chargers getting the points.
Yeah, I am too. I'll rock with you because like you said, like you look at the two Steelers wins, and it was an immobile Kirk Cousins where the Falcons didn't even try to let him move because they didn't feel it. So you're playing against like it was like you're playing against the most obvious offense ever, and obviously they held them to what 10 points, and then they play Bo Nix, who he like seriously blows. So Steelers weren't going to lose that game. They need to. There's always a shout at the Steelers having some like 5-0 record when they don't deserve it. But I don't know. It feels like the way the Chargers have commanded themselves on offense. Really, J.K. Dobbins looking about as good as we could have assumed when he was coming out of college. Like this is probably what everyone thought he was going to look like way back when. Obviously, injuries hurt him. Knock on wood. Hopefully, he stays healthy. It's fun, watching him succeed out there. He's been great. They've been running the ball with him, and the running identity of Jim Harbaugh has really bled into the Chargers. And, Justin Herbert's become more of a vocal leader because of it, the whole thing. So, the Chargers got good vibes going on. They got a great offensive line. So I'm taking the Chargers. Oh boy. Next game we have the Bears and the Colts in Indy. Colts are 1.5-point favorites.
Banged up.
Banged up. 0-2. Big spot. Really feel like they gotta have it. the way they looked last week on the road against Malik Willis, mainly the offense looked bad. I mean, I didn't see a ton of the game. I was at the Phillies game, but what I did see on Twitter and, highlight shows and whatnot is that Anthony Richardson just did not look good, did not look nearly as good as he did against Houston week 1, and I don't know, like, the Bears defense is pretty solid as we've seen. They're keeping the team in games because their offense has been so inept due to their poor offensive line play. And it just feels like the Bears need to still get over some growing pains that I don't think they're there yet, and I think if the Colts, half a brain, if you're playing against the Bears, you need to send as many stunts as you can. You gotta send as many disguised pressures
No
up the
DeForest
middle as you
Buckner.
can. Yeah, like, if you're the Bears and the way like, if I'm the Bears and it's like, "Okay, I know where my issues are." I'm making it a very conscious effort to move the pocket almost every play. Like, I'm gonna have Caleb Williams purposefully rolling out, getting him outside of the pocket, and being able to look downfield and make a play. I'm trying to run a play action where the pocket seemingly moves and he's not forced to kind of stand right behind his center because the center is just getting absolutely abused and the guard is as well. So I don't know. This is a big game of adjustments. We'll see what coaching staff puts together, the better adjustment plan. But I guess I'll go with the 0-2 team that's like extremely desperate. They were supposed to have a playoff case this year, perhaps a division case if the natural regression hit the Texans hard enough. So I'll take the Colts minus 1.5.
I'm taking the Colts as well. The Bears strike me as the team that's going to go like 2-5 and then like go like 5-2.
End the year, and all of a sudden they're
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe
10-7.
I kind of pick up from them. Hey, listen, here's the thing with the Colts is the Colts can run the ball very well. I mean, this Anthony Richardson, you want to see him make better decisions.
Hmm.
This Colts defense, Michael, a lot of people thought they were going to be an elite defense this year. You saw glimpses of it last year. I know
Hmm.
they're banged up, but like I don't know. I feel like this could be like the Caleb game. Like we're gonna see what he's gonna look like when he's gonna actually have time to throw.
Like they gotta come up with a plan eventually. They got to do what they got to do. But yeah, so we're
The
both
fact
taking
that
the
he's
Colts.
not like Bryce Young, where he literally has like he's not like Bryce Young, where he's like no confidence. Bryce
Hmm.
Young, Bryce Young probably should not have played his rookie year or as much as he did his rookie year.
Yeah, yeah, that's a whole nother dumpster fire. I mean, what are they doing out there?
Yeah,
So next game we have this is an interesting one. So the Texans, who are 2-0 yet 0-2 against the spread, are heading to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. The Vikings are 1.5 point underdogs. This line's moved from 3.5 to 1.5. Um, you look at the Vikings. Brian Flores is like chaos, controlled chaos on the defensive side of the ball, where they like blitzing packages, totally unexpected stuff. He's great at designing stuff, and he's just throwing haymakers, haymakers. There's nonstop at the quarterback and at teams' offenses. And you look at what it did to the Niners offense last week. The Texans offense hasn't looked great, I'll say. Nico Collins has put up some big yardage
yeah, but
numbers, but
they've never really been pushed by the opposing teams. Well, I don't know. In week 1 against the Colts,
the Colts were scoring. That game was
Colts were
tight.
scoring, but I think C.J. Stroud did a really good job managing the game, especially in the end. Especially that throw he made to Nico Collins that got the backbreaker first down. Like the Colts haven't, not the Colts, excuse me, the Texans haven't really aired it out as much. They've been much more like like I would say,
Ground and pound. They're
I guess
running the
more
ball.
conservative. No, most likely no Joe Mixon this week. He got unfortunately he got hip
Hip
drop
dropped,
tackled, which is stupid because they're trying to enforce this penalty on hip drop
but they
tackles. They
didn't
never
call it.
call it.
And
That's
it
neither.
was like pretty obvious. Like, I
It
don't know.
was so obvious. So the fantasy football free agent pickup Hall of Famer Cam Akers is likely going to be starting, which tells me that they're going to be airing it out.
Yeah.
And I think today,
Does that not favor the Vikings?
I think today is a Diggs day. This is a
Interesting.
Spawn Diggs day because I think, like you said, the Vikings are going to bracket Nico Collins because Nico Collins looks like the new Julio Jones. A big,
Yeah.
fast,
Fast.
bare-handed
Free.
guy that's difficult to tackle. And I'm not saying not going to feed him the ball, but the
Listen, you
Vikings,
got weapons on offense. You got to use them.
they're going to sling the ball today. This is going to be like you mentioned, CJ Stroud hasn't really lit it up yet. This kind of feels like this is going to be this is
You're
this
taking
this is a
Houston.
Stroud day. Yeah, I'm taking the Texans. I think
I'm
we're also going to see Sam Darnold's carriage turn back into a pumpkin. That's a very old, dated reference.
interesting. I'm
Cinderella.
I'm gonna take I'm gonna take the Vikings. I'm gonna keep riding them out. I think that their defensive scheme is gonna play well. The way the Bears defense was able to kind of slow down that Texans offense. Listen, if the Bears had like say Mekhi Becton starting at right guard on Sunday night, they might have won the game. Like it was truly, you know, game wrecking pressure that the Texans were getting on Caleb Williams all day. Um, but their defense, they kept him in the game. Their defense covered the spread, covered the 6.5 spread, didn't let them get blown out. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna stick with the sluggish Texans offense thus far. That's really, you know, been a bit sluggish to get through the air, and I think that this is a tough matchup to get going against. So I'm gonna take the Vikings at home. Next game we have the Giants and the Browns. So the Creeps at home, 6.5 point favorites against the Giants. That's a lot of points for the Browns to be favored by. That's a lot of points for a quarterback who's awful to be favored by. And I know they, took care of their business against the Jags, but the Jags are simply just a mess. I don't know, man. The Browns are going to run a lot of man coverage. It's what they like to do. And I think that honestly will favor the Giants a little bit because Malik Neighbors has been getting ridiculous amounts of separation through the first 2 weeks. And he has one of the highest like target shares in the league. Daniel Jones is forcing them that football. But they've been running zone against them a lot, so it's been harder to whatever. So I'm expecting, with Jim Schwartz running a lot of man here today, I think Malik Neighbors is gonna have like a nice little breakout for him. I'm gonna take the Giants plus 6.5, and a sneaky they might win the game, but I'll take them to at least cover. I think that's too many points for a very bad quarterback and a stagnant offense to cover.
It's not good for the Browns that um, Miles Garrett has a foot injury. Both of his feet are injured, and he's basically said he's probably going to need to get surgery
Mm,
at the end of the year. That sort of tells me that he's I don't know what that means. If he's just going to
mhm,
play bad, is he just going to play like a shell of his former self? Is he going to have to go on IR at some point? I have
mm.
absolutely no idea, dude. But for Cleveland, I mean, look, here's the thing with the Giants defense. Like, the Commanders' offense might be the worst offense in the NFL, dude. One of the worst, unfortunately.
Right.
Not crapping on
Jaden Daniels, because he's
Jane
looked good.
Daniels. He has no one to
Daniels.
throw to.
Yeah.
He has no one to throw to. I mean, this to me, it's like Amari Cooper hasn't done anything. He's frustrated because Deshaun Watson's so pathetic he can't get him the ball.
Mhm.
They were doing like a Deontay Foreman, Jerome Ford, split
Split
backfield,
backfield.
trying to run the ball. Dude, like the Giants are just a dumpster fire, and they're on the road. I don't know, man. The Browns still have weapons on defense. Like, do you really think Daniel Jones is going to concoct something against them on the road. Like, you wouldn't you be surprised if he just turns it over 4 times today? And it's like 21-3 Browns. Like
He turns it
defensive,
over.
like defensive touchdown, couple rushing touchdowns.
That's what you're banking on, because I'm thinking he could turn it over and it could be 6-6 in the fourth quarter.
What's the total on this game? 38.5. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? I'm going to go with the Giants to cover. I don't think they're going to win.
Yeah. All right. Next game we
Eagle
have
game for last.
this next game. Yeah, Eagle game for last. Broncos, Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are 6-point favorites. Listen, that Denver defense has looked fairly good. I'm gonna pick Tampa to cover the 6, but I'm gonna do it cautiously. Tampa has looked very, very good. Their first 2 games, obviously a very nice win against Detroit last week, where that was, I think, such a disrespectful spread. Like, that line was like 7.5 or whatever, and it just felt totally wrong. But you look at how Tampa's looked, it looks like Baker, I'll say it again, has retained everything he learned from Dave Canales. Todd Bowles is still terrorist blitzing every team to oblivion, and I think that is like, that's probably my biggest reason why. Like, I think the Broncos defense is good enough to perhaps keep this close, but I think what Tampa is going to do defensively against Bo Nix is going to be too much for them to handle. So perhaps this game ends like 21-6 or something like that, and Tampa gets out of here 3-0 ahead of their Eagle game. So I'm taking Tampa.
I'm taking Denver. I'm not taking them because Sean Payton is 8-0 in his career against Todd Bowles.
You're not taking them because of that? I didn't know that.
I'm taking it because
something.
I kind of expect Baker to regress a little bit. I expect him to turn it
Fair
over a
enough.
couple times today. I think Denver is going to have a much more run-heavy attack. I think Bo Nix is going to play a little better. I don't think this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is really all that good. It's their offense, But I think Mike Evans is going to be locked down by PS2, Patrick Surtain II. And we'll see with Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's biggest problem in his entire career has been consistency, and he's being used in the Cooper Kupp role in Liam Cohen's offense. And
he's cooking.
He's cooking. He's been playing really well. I just think this could be especially with Baker, listen, there's good Baker and then there's bad Baker.
Mm-hmm.
And when bad Baker, I feel like when we see elite Baker have a game, he then throws a clunker the following week.
Yeah, because bad Baker turns the ball over a lot. Bad Baker throws 3 picks in a game, just forcing a few things. All right, fair enough. No, listen, I'm definitely cautious with my Tampa pick. This next game is Greesh. It'll be Malik Willis and the Green Bay Packers in a revenge game situation in Tennessee against the Titans.
Revenge? For what?
Malik Willis seeking revenge on the Titans for giving up on him and drafting Will Levis.
Oh. They're both bad.
Right. The Titans are 3-point favorites. Everyone loading up on Green Bay. The Packers offense did not do anything exceptional last week against the Colts. It was their defense that did very, very well. The Titans offense.
You weren't inspired by Malik Willis going 12 of 14 for 140 yards and rushing for 40 yards?
It's just such weird. I'm.
That's a college
Listen, Matt LaFleur, he knows what he has to do, and he's going to do it. But I look at the Titans and their defense. Their defense has always been a bit stingy, and their offense has been putrid. They made the Colts offense look so bad, but are they just is Malik Willis just due to turn the ball over a bunch of times? I don't know. I really don't know. This
I don't really try. So
greasy game.
I think There's a
I'm
reason why
staying
they're
so
not
far away.
rushing. There's a reason why they're not going to rush to put Jordan Love in this game because of the Titans defense. They don't want to risk it, right?
It's just there's also, you gotta be smart. You don't need him rushing back if he's not ready.
I think we're going to see bad Malik Willis, and I think the Titans. You know what? I'm going to take Tennessee. I
Me too.
when I watched their offense, like, listen, we all know what the highlight reel plays are for the Titans offense. It's the insane decision making of Will Levis.
Right.
You know, he's like Timu Brett Favre. Calvin Ridley's looked pretty good. Like they're kind
Yeah.
of they're using him like Jamar Chase, which
Dave
is
Callahan.
which
Listen, Dave.
because I got him for an anytime touchdown today because I feel like the Packers defense, like their secondary, I don't think the Packers defense is. I mean, I think it was just Anthony Richardson just played like hot garbage.
I'm saying, like, I don't think their defense is that great, and like Will Levis at this point is teetering on like playing for his job. Like he needs to put
Oh
together.
yeah, dude.
Like if Will Levis plays like crap again and has like another mind-boggling turnover, I think Dave Callahan might punch him in the face and tell him to go sit
oh,
down.
he's gonna
Like,
bench him because I think Bryce Callahan is
is
like
it Bryce Callahan? What am I saying? I'm
he's a
saying
damn.
Dave, like Dave Canales.
So Bryce Callahan,
Is it Bryce
I think
Callahan?
Bryce Callahan is.
No, it's not Bryce Callahan. Who's who in God's name is the Titans coach? Brian Callahan.
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
whatever, whatever. Win
That
games.
shows
We'll remember
there
your
you
first
go.
name, bruh. No, so
Brian Callahan.
Brian Callahan was probably coached him like he was coaching Jake Brown and like don't turn it over. You know, we'll air it out a little bit with you once you start cooking, whatever,
Mhm.
right? He's just going completely off script, and that's why he just hates him so much. He's like, you're not, why aren't you doing what we're telling you to do?
Yeah, it's a bluntness from the head coach spot that you really haven't seen in a while, where, the "What the F are you doing?" on the sideline to, like, doubling down in the presser, like, yeah, he's not pulling any punches, and, like, I don't think Will Levis is a guy that it's
Do
gonna,
we?
like,
So
affect
so
him.
by the way, because of the Titans just love like I don't know signing and trading for everyone. Do we feel like he's gonna like in the offseason go after Jake Browning and try to sign T Higgins?
T. Higgins, I think they're gonna make a push for, yeah. Jake Browning, I'm not sure. Um,
He knows my offense. He doesn't. He listens to me.
yeah. So, both taking the Titans here. Opening up the 4 o'clock, we actually have 5 4 o'clock games today. The NFL, this is a good bounce. They have 7 1 o'clock games, 5 4 o'clock games, and then 2 Monday night games feels a bit unnecessary. Like one of those could have been a 1 o'clock game. But I like the 5 games in the 4 o'clock window because it opens you up because sometimes you only get 3, and if a couple are stinkers, all of a sudden you're stuck. So to open up the 4 o'clocks, speaking of stinkers, the Las Vegas Raiders are playing host to the Carolina Panthers, the biggest disaster in football. Panthers are 6-point underdogs. No Bryce Young. It's going to be Andy Dalton, and that just might be better for the Panthers.
I mean, I think it is better because
Bryce Young's a shame because listen, we've talked at length about this. I've said this for like a year or so now that I personally wouldn't draft a quarterback that if everything went right and all the developmental steps were hit and all the good qualities came out in a guy, that he just is like Alex Smith. And Alex Smith was a good quarterback in this league, but there's a reason that, the year Colin Kaepernick took over is the year the Niners actually made it to a Super Bowl. It's no, secret that when Patrick Mahomes took over as the starter, the Chiefs finally became a legit juggernaut. It's not like they weren't making the playoffs under Alex Smith. They just weren't winning in the playoffs under Alex Smith. And those upgrades at the quarterback positions to some more dynamic players that are obviously elite like Mahomes, takes you to a next level. Point being is that Bryce Young is a ways away from even turning into Alex Smith, and that's what I think his absolute peak is. So if, you know, would the best you're ever gonna look being a guy that wasn't enough for 2 different franchises to get over the hump, I'm not investing the top draft selection that the Carolina Pan as well as the trade capital that the Carolina Panthers invested into him. I just don't think that was a smart decision. Nonetheless, you drafted him, and you played him his rookie year. He didn't look good. You won 2 games. You didn't even have your first round pick to celebrate it. And you're 2 games into this year. It's early, and you don't have a super hard schedule, but you're, like, staring down the barrel of 0-17, and you pull him and bench him for the veteran for whatever reason, and I don't know, it's just a lot of ineptitude because what's benching him gonna really do at this point? I don't know. I don't think he's gonna, like, magically come back better, but at the same time like, I don't know. It's not like you're trying to win games either, so you have the excuse of, "Oh, it gives you a better shot to win games." It's like, I guess, but you shouldn't really be trying to win a ton of games right now. Your number 1 goal should be to be trying to get the most out of Bryce Young, and I don't know how much you're gonna get by him sitting at this point. It just feels like you're jerking him around a little bit, and as much as he himself deserves a lot of the crap because a lot of people are like, "Oh, the Panther O-line," but it's like the Panthers' offensive line grades in the pass blocking front has been pretty good through the first 2 weeks. Bryce Young has had good amounts of time to throw. He's just not seeing things well, whether it's bad route concepts or he's just too small or whatever. But it's like mind-boggling decision making. He has guys, he won't throw it, but then he bails, and instead of just throwing it away, he'll like take a sack. And it's like, dude, that's like what 2020 Wentz looked like. And that's what you're getting at a year 2 of your number 1 overall draft selection. That's not good. So as much as the situation is pretty horrible to be in, I do think Bryce Young does deserve a lot of the criticism he gets for struggling up to this point. I do think a lot of it's his own fault, pretty much probably as much as it is the Panthers' fault for not building a good enough team and being one of the most incompetent organizations in football.
I
All
think
that being said,
I feel like
I
this is
don't
gonna.
know if this was the right move to sit him anyways.
I mean, is there a right move or a wrong move? I think part of the issue is
That's another thing, like, I don't know, there might
there
not be
is.
a right move in this case.
I don't think there is a right move, Michael. To be honest
Mhm.
with you, yeah, they're trying to think of other dumpster fires. I mean, the 0-16 Browns come to mind. Um,
I'm so different though, like, I don't know, they're not going 0-16 with a top draft selection at quarterback, like, you're drafting number 1 overall pick here, Bryce Young.
did you see Bengal tweeted like this draft's going to be the best draft for backup quarterbacks ever?
Yeah, oh my god, absolutely. Like, JJ McCarthy's gonna be an awesome backup one day, and Bo Nix is absolutely gonna sling it together and win, like, 3 games for a team in 3 years when their quarterback, like, sprains their ankle. Absolutely. Um,
I think this to me, I'm taking the Raiders. This feels like it's a Brock Bowers game.
mhm,
Like realistically, like they're probably gonna just bracket the hell out of Devonte Adams.
mhm,
And what we saw during the Raiders comeback is they were just like Brock Bowers is just wide open because he's really good, and B, you don't triple bracket tight ends. Like that's just stupid,
mhm.
because
Yeah,
when they did, it just left Devonte Adams wide open, which is he's still an elite receiver, Michael. Like I just like I know he's older, but I think he's still a top 5 wide receiver.
yeah. No, Adams is still very, very good. Yeah, I think I'm taking Carolina today. Like, it's just one of those
What?
it's one of those things where I don't necessarily think they're gonna win, but I feel like this is
Because they
gonna
had
be
that miraculous win. They're
yeah,
gonna it's
like, there's
it's
a
a
lot of things
letdown.
yeah, there's a lot of things playing the
Any
Panthers'
given
favor.
Sunday,
Any
anybody
given
can.
Sunday, all the cliches. Coming off a huge win that they did, uh, on the road against Baltimore, no less.
I would agree with you normally. I would agree with you normally, but this is where I'm. This is why I'm going the other way here. I'm going. This is my.
Mhm.
This Antonio Pierce is a psycho.
Oh, absolutely,
He's
he
probably
is.
telling his team, "I'm going to be pissed if we don't drop 60 points on these guys
That is true, the
they are
Raiders are
vulnerable."
who was it? Oh, it was the Chargers last year that they almost put up, like, 70 on.
That's why they lost to the Chargers, I think, because they remember them running the score up on them.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
remember
I
that.
look at I look at the Panthers, and it's like I think in my eyes, it's the equivalent of, like, firing the head coach, and it's like, "Alright, we gotta show some pride here, fellas, and, like, let's get a win under our belts." And I'm not saying they're gonna win, but it's like, I think a lot of those guys, especially on the offensive side of the ball, are looking like, "Damn, like, we're letting this kid's future down. We're, letting Bryce like, we need to get it together here, and, like, let's put together a performance, show that we're, whatever." And I think, talk about 6 points for Deshaun Watson to cover.
I
I
don't.
think 6 points is a
I
lot for
disagree
Gardner
with
Minshew
you.
to
I
cover.
disagree with you because if they benched him, when you bench a quarterback that you're so heavily invested in, it's not like it's just the coach's decision. I'm sure some of the leaders on the team were like, "This dude can't play. You can't have him out there."
Maybe, perhaps.
They're gonna rally around Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton, absolutely. He's a guy that people rally
Andy
around for
Dalton
sure.
does well when he has other good pieces around him, Michael. Do
Adam
the
Thielen,
Carolina
baby.
Panthers have good pieces?
Adam Thielen is gonna turn back the clock today. You'll see it.
Okay.
Panthers are gonna
I thought
lose
I'd take an Adam Thielen for an anytime touchdown, I'll be honest with you.
Panthers are gonna lose 20-17. Anyways, next game we have this game could have been cool. It's a shame. Hopefully Tua doesn't play football again, but that doesn't seem like the case.
No, he went to
The
Disney World
Dolphins,
after 2 days after the game, bro.
God, the Dolphins are on the road to take on the Seahawks across the country, the farthest they could possibly go from
Oh,
Miami.
that is a good point. Is this the longest distance any team has to travel in the
I think
NFL this season?
in the country, I think so.
In the
Yes,
continental United States, obviously, if they play
yes,
overseas, it's different.
like in Brazil or something like that,
No,
because they
okay.
might just do that. The Seahawks, this line was 6.5 down to 4.5. I'm sure this is because of the Kenneth Walker injury. Uh, the I don't know, man. Like the I feel as though running Skylar Thompson out there is like you're just kind of begging to lose. I don't know what they see in Skylar Thompson personally. I just don't think it works. Like Mike McDaniel's really gonna have to. He probably took like a
Didn't they sign like Mike White or someone? Who was
Tyler
their
Huntley, right?
Oh, they're not going to play. I guess Tyler Huntley doesn't know the
He's
offense.
not probably not ready yet. So like if Huntley was playing, I'd feel decent about it. But it's like I don't know. I just feel like you could have
I
made
would
the
be
backup
intrigued if he was.
quarterback position. Yes. So I think that McDaniel is probably he probably took like a big rip of something before he came up with his game plan, and it's
The
like, all
vape
right,
then?
yeah, and he's like, all right,
Yeah,
I'm ready to start cooking, and
yeah. Do you know? Yeah.
he's cooked up something.
Do you want me to give you the name of the game plan, Michael? It's
Yeah,
called Devon Achan. That
yeah,
is the game plan.
yeah. He's got to be creative. Obviously, they're going to pound the rock. I think a lot of running backs are going to get touches, but he's got to be creative in getting the ball to his playmakers. I think we might see like some Tyreek Hill carries, like some tosses outside to him,
I
just
wouldn't
getting
be
the ball in his
surprised if you see
hands.
them bring in Tyler Huntley for like
Maybe
plays.
they have a few yeah, like they gotta be creative. I think we'll see some wildcat, um, with like Achan as the quarterback or something. Like they're it's gonna be hard for them. It's hard for them to ever win a game that Tyreek Hill isn't involved in, and if you're not gonna have a quarterback that you feel good about and pushing the ball down the field to, you gotta be creative and just getting the ball any way you can. All that being said, uh, the Seahawks offense looks very nice. Looks like it's cooking. Kenneth Walker or not, Geno's just looking very good. JSN looks very good. Metcalf in the 7 snaps
So
not being guarded by Christian Gonzalez was, like,
I know this is a
insane.
small sample size. Sorry, Michael, I didn't mean to cut
Go
you
ahead.
off.
No, you're good.
The worst team against a slot receiver in the NFL so far this year has been the Dolphins, and they were amongst the worst last year.
Mhm.
This feels like a Jackson Smith and Jigba like game.
I mean, was it not last week? He had, what, 12 catches for, like, 140
I
yards or
feel like
something?
he's gonna get a big
Long touchdown.
yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm taking Seattle -4.5. I trust their offense. I trust Geno. And I think as long as the Dolphins are like giving Skylar Thompson significant quarterback snaps, they're just unserious, and it's very unlikely that they
You
win.
know what's
Like,
funny about this Seahawks defense? Here are the quarterbacks they've had to play so far: Bo Nix, Jacoby
mm,
Brissett,
mm,
Skylar Thompson. They could
really
go
cooking.
3-0, and we'll talk about the Niners in a little bit. But dude, if you're the Niners, you should be a little concerned.
Yeah, you're pissed for sure.
You need to be concerned right now.
Yeah. But anyways, Seattle -4. You taking Seattle -4.5?
Yeah, I'm taking Seattle. A lot of people don't trust. I think a lot of people. I think there's a thought process of the Seahawks are not good enough to go 3-0. Doesn't mean they're going to win the division. They could still like blow chunks.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
Next game we have this is a good game. The Detroit Lions are on the road against the Arizona Cardinals. Wow, that line's 3. That line, interesting. All right, so the Lions are 3-point favorites. The Lions, to put it bluntly, have not looked good. Their offense has looked sluggish especially in the air. Jared Goff has not looked very good this season. They
wow,
haven't really
surprise.
been able to. They haven't listen, it'll come to the surprise of many because Jared Goff was getting, like, a lot of praise. And listen, not saying he didn't deserve the praise he was getting for what he's been able to do the last couple of years, but it's been a slow start for them. They haven't really been able to throw it how they want, but this is a good matchup against a bad Cardinals defense. However, the Cardinals offense has been exceptional. Kyler
Cooking.
Murray has looked awesome. Which honestly, like, good for Kyler. I think he was given a lot of crap
So that's kind
over
of
the
where people were.
years.
I said the Bills have a good defense. They're like, oh, but the Cardinals move the ball. The Cardinals have a really good offense.
Yeah, the Cardinals offense is really, really good, and I think that, like, when Kyler took over last year, coming back from injury, they were able to run the ball just at will at teams, and you throw in Marvin Harrison to really open things up, and now they can kind of just do whatever they want, and Kyler has really been cooking. I'm taking the Cardinals +3 at home. I think they're gonna win. I just Detroit really hasn't moved me much, and I don't know if, like, this is the breakout for them. Like,
I'm
it's just
taking,
a tough spot.
this is a really intriguing. This is what Vegas wants. You see how it's 50-50.
Yeah, they want the split here.
They want this split here. I mean, I want to go with Detroit. I think we're going to see Detroit bounce back.
Mhm,
This is. I feel like with the Cardinals last week, you saw the potential, right? You saw the
mhm.
potential, and I think this is going to be a high scoring game. Marvin Harrison Jr., by the way, Michael, you weren't even born when this happened. I haven't seen Marvin Harrison Jr. impact a game as a rookie so early in the season like he did. It was like Randy Moss levels of like he's just so much more talented than the
Yeah,
guy
like
that's like covering him. It's like
yeah,
how
like, he
do you
doesn't
stop him?
yeah, and it's been like that ever since he's in high school. Obviously, a local kid, but, like, he'd go out there against LaSalle, and, like, it
Like
would
he
just
caught
be
4 passes, 120 plus yards, 2 scores. It was like at that point, it's like you don't need to.
It didn't even break
It's
a sweat.
over. It was
Yeah.
over.
Yeah. So all right. So we're split on that game. That'll be a good game. I'm excited for that one.
I feel like we're going to see a Gibbs breakout because part of their offensive issues, Michael, is they
Mhm.
try to favor David Montgomery. And if you notice when their offense really broke out, it was when Montgomery got hurt and they got Gibbs involved. And Gibbs was
Well,
just a madman.
the way I look at Detroit is you need to. I think you really need to use them both in conjunction. They need to work together, and I think that like they do a solid job. I think of alternating drives at times, but I think sometimes when you commit fully to them alternating a drive, it's like it almost like it removes your like, obviously, the Lions run the ball really well, but it's like if Montgomery's in there, it's like you really like, they're gonna pound the rock. But if Gibbs is in there, it's like, okay, if they're running the ball, we know it's like going to the edges, some outside zones, some stretches, and they'll throw it to him out of the backfield if they wanna get him involved. I think that they gotta do a slightly better job of kind of blending the 2 sort of styles together, because I think that that can lead to slight predictability and force Jared Goff into situations where if he's not cooking, that's when things can go south, and it's I don't know, it's what's kinda happened the first 2 weeks for them. Their offense really hasn't looked up to snuff. Um, but yeah, that'll be a good one. Another good game in the 4 o'clock, good 4 o'clock window. The Baltimore Ravens desperate in Jerry World against the Cowboys. Ravens, this line swung. Cowboys were point favorites. Now the Ravens are point favorites. At this point, it should probably just be a pick 'em. It's two teams that have, they really both disappointed in week two in their home openers. They both looked very, very poor. The Ravens are desperate, man. Their offensive line is not as good as it was last year. Obviously, they lost pieces, but they didn't really adequately replace it, and their defense hasn't looked fantastic otherwise. Um, it puts them in a tough spot because, we talk about, those stats start coming out as soon as week 3 rolls around, where it's like teams that start 0-3 or have a, X% chance to make the playoffs, and it's a very small number. It always happens. It's like clockwork. There's always a good team that starts 0-3 that, it feels like they're cooked. And maybe it's the Ravens this year. Maybe it's the Who knows? But I'm gonna pick the Ravens. I just think that they are super desperate, and this Cowboys defense is not as great as, it's just been over the last couple
Geez,
years,
what
and
gave you that impression, Michael, when they got
yeah, like
completely obliterated last week?
right. So, like, I think that the Ravens are gonna run the ball and I think commit to it, not try to, like, you know, prove a point by not running it or something. Like, I think that this is a game where you kinda gotta cut the leash off Lamar and let him run if he needs to, and I think you gotta make it a point to pound Derrick Henry the way the Saints sort of pounded Kamara, and I don't know. You gotta minimize the amount of times the Cowboys touch the ball. You gotta be able to control the clock, and I believe in Baltimore to do that this week. Back against
I
the
like
wall, huge
Baltimore
spot.
as well. This is the big thing with ball. I think when you saw last week the Cowboys with CD Lamb
Mhm.
is, and Jake Ferguson's now back. That's a huge get for
That is nice.
the Cowboys. Is that I don't know if you noticed this too. It felt like with CD Lamb, he was just making plays nonstop last year for them. They haven't gotten that for the first 2 games. And I don't
I
know if
mean,
it's
he had the
because
long touchdown last week, but they were already down by, like, 3 scores when that happened.
I wonder it's because the Cowboys, no one thinks the Cowboys can run the ball.
Mhm.
And when you know that, you're just going to send your linebackers are going to overshade to the sidelines to drop
Mhm.
back in zone, and you're going to basically have to force Dak to, you know, potentially throw in double coverage and make consistently good throws. But they just don't have like depth outside of Ferguson and Lamb. And that's where you see the problems they run into on offense. You saw it against the Browns, and then you saw it last week against the Saints.
It's really the running back position because they just can't run the ball. Like
The fact they
Dallas,
didn't draft Braylon Allen is
yeah,
hysterical.
yeah. A lot of teams pass on him for seemingly no reason, but the Cowboys,
He refused to work out the combine.
yeah, and like I mean, he tweeted saying, like, you know, oh, how did he slip? And he was like, because people were obsessed with watching me run around in my underwear. And like, it's like, yeah, it's true. You watched the game film, you could have seen that he was going to be at least good enough. And the Cowboys, it really makes no sense because if they weren't going to address it other than Ezekiel Elliott as their running back fix, it felt like just like taking a shot on a guy at least would have been better than whatever the hell they're doing this year. So yeah, Cowboys really missed the mark on that. They can't run the ball, and I think it's gonna be kind of what bites them because they're gonna become very, very one-dimensional very quickly. Not that Dak can't throw or whatever, but it's like teams aren't even gonna respect the run, and if you can't even respect it a little bit, it just makes things a lot harder on yourself.
Do you?
Final 4 o'clock. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, do you feel like though the issue with the Ravens is their weapons and well, their wide receivers, not their tight ends? Um, I mean, if they go like 2 tight end set, you know,
The problem is, I think their offensive line because listen, they've had these weapons out there, even though they're underwhelming, and they've been able to just have success
the
because they've
offensive
been able
line
to
didn't
pound the
look to
rock.
be a problem when they played the Chiefs. All that,
Yeah, but they still
Lamar was
couldn't run the
cooking.
ball. Like, they were cooking because Lamar was cooking with his legs. Like, that's what kept him in the game. It's what almost won them the game. I like him just, dropping back and being able to, thrash the defense with his legs and his arm. He was killing it. Like,
I
he
mean,
really put the team on
let's
his
just end
back.
with this before we move on. Like John Harbaugh has not done a good job so far this year,
No, not at all.
but Mike McCarthy, realistically, if if the Browns were playing Jameis instead of the Creep, they could be 0-2.
Maybe. Maybe. Yeah. Listen, we're rocking with the Ravens. Next 4 o'clock game we have, last one on the docket. The 49ers are on the road in SoFi, which really isn't much of a road game.
Not really.
That stadium is very red when they play the Rams out there. It's honestly embarrassing. So this is basically the Niners at home. What is that? 5.5, 6.5 point favorites. That I don't know, man. Is that steep to you? Like, what the hell have the
That's a
Niners done to
lot of
deserve
points to
that?
lay as a road favorite in a divisional game. But as you
Yeah, road or
initially
not.
stated, is this really like a hostile environment for the
I mean,
Niners?
John, no Debo Samuel, no Christian McCaffrey, no George Kittle on Sunday afternoon. Like, it's going to be all Brock out there. It's going to be Brock,
That's the
Ayuk.
reason why I benched Purdy and I picked up
That's what
Derek
I'm
Carr.
saying. So,
I'm going to jinx him, Michael. I'm going to jinx him today. Don't worry.
I appreciate your sacrifice, I guess. Like, this will be all Brock. This is not a great Rams defense. Not great. It'll be nice, not nice, but it'll be. I don't know. It's there for Brock Purdy to kind of show off and earn his money, man. Well, listen, you wanna make $55 million a year. You got to be able to
55 million.
perform
He's
if the
going to want to
guys
get
aren't
paid
playing.
more than Dak.
Right. So you got to be able to cook, and here's your opportunity, man. Thing back against the wall. We're all banged up. You need to have a good game, and there it is. I'm taking the Rams. I know they're also extremely banged up. No Cooper Cup, no Puka Nakua. But if I know McVay, he's gonna cook up something. I think they're gonna pound the rock. They're really gonna try to
Cook
run the
up with
ball.
what? Crack? Like what does he got to
Cook up
cook with?
with Kyron.
You can't cook anything up if you don't have players, Michael.
Listen, he used Ben Skoranek as a dangerous weapon in years prior. So I think he's gonna figure something out.
I'm
I'm
taking
taking
the
the Rams.
Niners to cover this, Michael. The reason why I'm taking
Interesting.
them is even though, listen, Purdy's a rat. I know you despise him with every fiber in your being.
Yeah, he's
I'm not
just the worst.
I'm not a fan of him either, but like this is the thing. Ayuk held out all training camp. He's been basically running cardio the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Like you paid him like he's a number one, an elite wide receiver. You paid him like he's an elite wide receiver, right?
He's got to start acting like
He's
it.
got to start playing like one. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
this is the week, but like, because you saw it with Bosa when he held out, it took him a couple weeks for him to get back into like game shape, and then he was wrecking people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jordan Mason's been pretty good. That's the thing.
He's replaced McCaffrey well, which I mean that just shows that like
but
it's the scheme that McCaffrey
but
elevated.
but you had when you have Debo running in motion, you have to account for that. He's not there. Like
Dude,
is Jawan Jennings, Kittle, yeah.
They're losing
You know, I'm
weapons,
switching
man.
my pick. I'm taking the Rams to cover.
Okay, there you go. All right, Sunday Night Football. The Kansas City Chiefs, 3-point favorites on the road against Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. They're treating this Eagle win like massively. And again, sour grapes don't mean to sound like it, but like you sent me that tweet. It's like this is their biggest. They're viewing this game in Atlanta this tonight as like their biggest home game since 2017 or something. Like it's just like they celebrated the Eagles win, and granted, it was first win of the new regime with Raheem Morris, but they're treating it like I don't know, like it just feels like they're blowing it up into a bigger deal than it is, and they're like making tonight seem like a huge deal. They're putting a lot of pressure on tonight, and I feel like that's when teams lose to the Chiefs. When you overthink yourselves and you think you got to do something extraordinary instead of just like being firm in your beliefs. And we talk about all the time how when teams play Mahomes, teams play Andy Reid, teams play Bill Belichick in years prior, that they overthink and they beat themselves. And just their aura on the sideline is enough to like whack a coach out of their mind and make them do some stupid stuff. And I feel like we might see that tonight. Like we might see the Falcons try to run like a fake punt when they have no business running a fake punt
We
because they
can't do
think
an
they got to
onside
steal
kick.
it. Right. So it's like it'll be like 4th and 6 on their own 28-yard line, and they're gonna try a
Oh no,
fake
Young
punt
Hoku's
and
gonna like throw a pass.
right, like something stupid. So I'm taking the Chiefs -3. I don't not that I think the Falcons are listen, I know what the Falcons are.
I think it's smart that they made this the Chiefs laying 3 from the book because everyone hates the Chiefs, and especially last week where it was pass interference. But I think people are just so mad that they just get those calls constantly. Where we've
Mhm.
watched enough football where if that was like let's say that was Titans Packers, are they going to call that on with
On
Jair
the
Alexander? Will they
for
swallow the whistle if that was him?
and Will Levis
Probably.
throwing it. Yeah, it matters. Hey, listen. Yeah.
It's
So
like
where you landing?
with Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, like the superstar gets all the calls.
Yeah.
So people hate watch, and I think people. I
People
mean,
hate bet nowadays.
they're hate betting, and
You can't hate bet. Hate
you
betting's
can't hate
bad.
that. I think the Chiefs are gonna are gonna beat the brakes off the Falcons.
Yeah, that might be a
Like
hate.
Chris
That
Jones
might be
might
a hate
just
watch.
destroy Kirk Cousins tonight.
This sounds like a little bit of hate picking.
Well, no, I mean, Michael, like if you're the Chiefs, everyone's
No,
like,
I don't. I'm
no,
not
no, like think of
disagreeing
this from
with.
the Chiefs' perspective. No. Think this from the Chiefs' perspective. Oh well, if Isaiah Likely's toe is in bounds, and then if if the refs were in the Chiefs' pocket, they'd be 0-2 right now.
No, listen, they hear all the
And if you're the
noises.
Chiefs, or if you're like Patrick Mahomes, don't you want to be like, I'm just gonna wipe the floor with this Fugazi Falcon team,
Mhm.
where basically Like,
So the Chiefs,
isn't
Chiefs are
Mahomes
banged
due
up.
for like a 5 touchdown game?
Yeah, and
It's
listen, the
prime
Chiefs,
time, dude.
Chiefs are banged up. Pacheco out for an extended period of time. He might be out for the
Are you
season.
surprised they're saying that they're going to give the majority of the carries to Carson Steele, despite the fact he fumbled last week? And
No, and
he's really a
I'm mad at
fullback.
dude, I'm mad at myself because I drafted Carson Steele at like the last pick in my fantasy draft, and then I dropped him because Jake Ferguson got hurt and I needed a tight end, and I was looking at all my handcuff bet, and I was like, Carson Steele's not a guy that's playing a bunch, and I dropped him, and obviously Pacheco gets hurt, so that really sucked. I wasn't able to get him back. But yeah, Monday night we have 2 games because I don't know, the NFL is bored. They need the 2 games on a Monday night because God forbid one of them's bad, but then they pick 2 matchups that might end up both bad. The Jacksonville Jaguars are heading to Buffalo to play the Bills. Bills are 5.5-point favorites at home. Listen, the Jags,
Whoa.
they stink, and I think a lot of it has to do with Doug, unfortunately.
No, I think it's
And
Doug and the roster.
sure, I think Doug's allegiance to Press Taylor, I don't know what Press Taylor has on Doug Peterson that has them so tied together, but the Jags offense looks horrendous, and the play calls and the schemes are garbage. They are terrible, they are awful, they are brutal. Everything about it sucks, and it's a shame because, like, listen, Lawrence gets his fair share of crap, but I do still think he's good. I just think that the situation he's in is very, very unfavorable at the moment. It just feels like the game's passed Doug by, and
Well,
what I
no, it's
think the
because Doug doesn't have Jeff Stoutland as his O line coach.
listen, yeah, you can't. So
It's
it's
really
like you
easy to
can't.
call offenses when your O line's going to win almost every week.
Yeah, you can't bail out your bad schemes with like having your quarterback have plenty of time to throw. And like I think what would really benefit Doug is, he gets fired either during the year or after the
If
year.
Doug gets fired and Sirianni gets fired, the whole fan base is going to want Doug back.
I want Doug kind of really far from this team. What I think Doug should do is he needs to get on a staff, like go call Andy and say, "Listen, do you have a spot for me? I need to learn again and like relearn some things, learn some new things." If he wants to coach again after this Jacksonville job inevitably ends, he's going to need to redo what he believes in. He can't bring Press Taylor with him anymore. He can't call plays like it's 2017 anymore. Like it doesn't work. The game's very different, doesn't work, and he's trying to do the same thing, and it's going to cost him his job eventually. So I'm taking the Bills. I think the Jags are just they're pretty hopeless right now. Like I just don't see the light at the end of the tunnel for him right now, and the
They
Bills are
do.
playing
The
very
only
good
thing that's
football.
going to save them in this game
Extra
is,
time too for Buffalo
dude,
playing
the money
Thursday to
line's
Monday.
99-1, dude. Like, we saw last
Dude, is
week,
that fishy?
Vegas took everyone to the cleaners last
With the
week.
Eagle game, especially the Eagle game. Eagle game was bad. That was like 92-8.
Michael, I think I might take the Jags to cover. I might take Jacksonville.
Ugh.
Not because Josh Allen has done a very good job protecting the ball.
He has. He's making it a point, it appears.
But I feel like a big reason for it is because of James Cook, their usage of James Cook. Josh Allen's not, throwing it 40 times and running it for 15 times like he was in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bad feeling that, the Jags defense is good. The Jags defense has allowed, they kept them in the last 2 games. I think their defense is underrated. I don't know, man. I just feel like Dalton Kincaid kind of got dinged up last week. Joe Brady,
Really?
for some reason, doesn't want to give him the ball, doesn't know
It's
how to
like
use
they schemed him the ball those like first couple like that one drive early, but then they just like got away from it.
I think I'm
Does he
going
get
to take the
hurt?
Jags. I'm going to take the
Okay,
Jags.
fair enough. All right, the second Monday night game, um, the Bengals are hosting the Commanders. Commanders are 7.5-point underdogs on the road. You talk about desperate teams. Bengals could not be more desperate. Good thing for them is, though, that this is a great matchup to get on track. Very bad defense, very poor corners, rookie quarterback on the other side. It's a good recipe to get your first win and look good doing it. And I'm taking the Bengals minus 7.5. I really think that, it'll be a big Jamar Chase day. And it should be like they should put up some numbers on the offensive side of the ball. They kind of have to. They're the Bengals are getting their fair share of slander. Finally, Burrow's getting his fair share of slander. Kind of finally, he has avoided it for some time now. Um,
Well, I don't think anyone's gone
but
out
he's
of
got
their
to prove it
way.
wrong.
I think as we look at how offense has declined the first couple weeks of the season, I think we all know, especially the last few years, why offense has gone down. You brought up like more teams are running the ball. You have that stupid comment from Mel Kiper banning too high safeties. That's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard football wise.
Yeah,
I think it's because with this, especially with the season now being 17 games, teams have made it a point of emphasis to not hit during training camp, and you're limited the amount of time you can spend with players, which is why you see so much slop the first few weeks of the season.
listen, teams are making a conscious effort. Defensive defensive coordinators, defensive minds on teams are like they are aware that the numbers tell you the best way to win games is to limit explosive plays. It's to limit the deep bombs down the field. The teams that give up the least amount of explosive plays tend to win, and running too high keeps everything in front of you. Teams are content with getting gashed on the run a few times if it keeps them from getting cooked over the top. It's the teams that can run the ball consistently and gash you consistently that have the success and then open up down the field. I mean, we saw it with the Saints last week against Dallas. They pounded the ball and then they were able to take the top off with Rashid Shaheed. So yeah, it's one of those things where teams are going to let you get a few 8-9 yard runs as long as you're not beating them for a 40-yard touchdown.
All right, this goes into our last game. The
Oh,
Eagles.
so are you taking the Bengals?
Oh, I'm taking the Bengals.
Yeah, okay.
Taking the
So our
Bengals.
last game, Eagles Saints in New Orleans. The line has swung tremendously. It was a Eagle line, about 3.5 points before the Monday night debacle, and it swung minus 2.5 for the New Orleans Saints, who have looked excellent, exceptional, dare I say perfect through their first two games against the Carolina Panthers and the Dallas Cowboys. Not a lot of logic going into this one, I guess. CJ Gardner-Johnson is seemingly going to give it a go. He seems in good spirits on the sideline, so he's going to try to play. No A.J. Brown again, which totally sucks. But at the same time, the offense really wasn't the biggest problem on Monday. It was the run defense, and that'll be the biggest, you
Well, the
know,
biggest issue with the Eagles right now offensively, besides the AJ Brown injuries, they don't score touchdowns in the red zone.
they're not finishing, and a lot of that is, not having A.J. Brown. Teams can key on the Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert thing and become a little one-dimensional. You got to be able to, find a way to turn threes into sevens. So,
Well, there's some interesting things to go on this game.
God, like
So
logic tells you the Eagles have no
Jalen
chance.
Hurts in his career is 2-0 against New Orleans, but those games
Dude,
were at home.
but when was the last time the Eagles won in the Superdome?
The last time the Eagles won in the Superdome was in 2007. However, the
John,
Eagles
the worst, the
don't make a lot of
losingest,
trips down there. I feel like they always
the
play the Saints at home.
the losingest franchise in all of sports has made it to 3 World Series since the last time the Eagles have won in the Superdome.
It's a really interesting
Isn't that a
thing.
damning way to look at it?
That's pretty bad.
Dude, but maybe they make it a fourth time, but will they win before that happens? Who
So,
knows?
who was the first overall pick in the 2008 NFL draft? Who was the first
What
overall pick?
is this spin?
Well, just to see how
Oh, wait, Trev,
80
wasn't
this
it Matt
is,
Ryan?
to put some emphasis on that.
Was it Matt Ryan?
No, it was Jake Long
Jake Long? Oh my
from the
god.
Dolphins.
Jesus Christ.
That's a long dude. That's
It's
a long time.
quite some time.
I don't think the iPhone was out yet the last time the Eagles won the Superdome. Yeah, it's been a long time. I'm taking the Saints.
Listen, every ounce of logic should push us to take New Orleans. And maybe this is me just being in denial. But there's a part of me that believes. There's a part of me that's like this Vegas line swinging. I think they opened it up as the Eagles as 3.5 point favorites as bait. Entering that Monday night game before it started, the Eagles were 3.5 point favorites against New Orleans. Even though the Saints had looked like the most complete team in football the first 2 weeks, I think they were trying to bait people a little bit. Maybe this is all wishful thinking. And now that it's swung in the Saints' favor, people are doubling down on, tripling down on. Everyone's picking the Saints. I mean, you look at the numbers here on our good old Vegas Insider. The spread is about split, slight favoring towards the Eagles, but the money line is on New Orleans pretty comfortably, about 2-1 there. So I think the Eagles are capable of winning. I really do, and I think that like desperation sort of thing, unless the total 2023 vibes are back and they're just going to be bad vibe football watching for the rest of the year. But if you believe in Vic Fangio even a little bit to like be a smart adult in the room and like call 5-man fronts against the Saints to try to limit getting gashed on the ground, sending creative blitzes to get some pressure on Derek Carr, trying to, force a turnover, whatever, and then the Eagles just really gotta make it a point. I think they need to make it a point to pound the rock. Not that like, what I'd like to see the Eagles do more, and maybe this is insane of me, but at least until AJ Brown's back, is I really kind of need them to see or need them to like get Gainwell and Will Shipley more involved with running the football, like, or just some sort of touches. Like those two guys, I think need to combine for like close to like 6 to 8 touches a game, and they're just not even coming close to those numbers because like you said, when Saquon Barkley's not in the game, it just feels so obvious on what's going on that it's like clearly going to be a path of some sort, and it's like you're almost able to ignore the running back if Barkley's not on the field. Like it's just like there's 0.0. They're drawing something up to get the ball in Will Shipley's hands or Kenny Gainwell's hands. So I think it would benefit them to keep teams a little more honest. And I get it, give the ball to your best players, but I think this team run blocks well enough that you can afford to give those two guys like 3 carries a piece to just kind of, set up some other things or keep defenses honest where it's like if Barkley's not in the game, we could assume it's going to simply be a throw. And I don't know, maybe that's just me overthinking things a little bit, but I think that can also play well in the red zone if you put two running backs on the field and get creative that way to maybe help you get some touchdowns.
What
Because
they also need is Jahan Dotson to stop sucking, which we don't
yeah,
know.
like he needs to get involved. Like he just can't get open. Like he's just not very good. I don't know. Maybe one of the worst teams in the league trying to cut a receiver wasn't like some impossible possible. Like clearly, maybe John Dawson's just bad. Like I don't know.
Uh,
So I'm
I
taking the
mean,
Eagles. Maybe it's just wishful, but I believe in something.
yeah, I think the thing with the Saints defense, they're getting turnovers, but like, I mean, if they had AJ Brown, this would be totally different.
Oh, for sure.
You
That's what I'm
know,
saying. Like the offense is just so good that more often than not, when when it's at full capacity, I think they're capable of like, if AJ Brown plays on Monday, they win. You know what I'm saying? They win the game. And we felt like it was, like, the worst game ever, basically. And it's
I
just if your
I
guy's
could
healthy, you
see. I
win.
mean, can I see like Clint Kubiak's offense throwing a little bit of a clunker? Because let's be realistic. Looking at the sum of their parts, are they as talented as like the greatest show on turf Rams or like any of these Peyton Manning offenses or like
No, this
Tom
is
Brady offenses? Like, no.
the Saints just drafted an offensive lineman, and other than that, everything else stayed the same. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara, Jawan Johnson, like, no Taysom Hill today, not expected. Like, it's just their offense really didn't change. You just changed the play caller and the scheme, and it's been beautiful looking on offense for them. So, it may that's what we're kinda hoping on. Maybe you rough up Carr a little bit, make him make a mistake and,
Well,
like,
Carr has always been one of the
force a
worst red zone
fumble. You gotta get a
quarterbacks in the
turnover.
NFL.
Yeah.
So if you just get, I mean, the Eagles are a bend but don't break defense.
That's what they've been doing.
Like if
Yeah,
they're going to
because
force the Saints to try and field goal them to death,
yeah. 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 It's it
okay.
because it's possible. Like, they even again, we were very disappointed with how the Eagles defense played last week, but damn it, they held them to 15 points, and that should have been it. Like, obviously, you can't ignore the last touchdown, but they were getting gashed on the ground the entire game, and they were only gave up 15 points despite getting gashed on the ground the entire time. That last drive they threw it the whole way. So, yeah, like, they're capable of forcing field goals. They gifted the Packers 2 red zone possessions because of bad turnovers, and they forced 2 field goals. So, the bend don't break is possible, and I think that that's something that, you force a few field goals, you score a few touchdowns on offense, you could get yourself a chance. So, all right, that's all our picks for today. That's the
That's
show.
our picks for today. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. We always appreciate you watching us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever we broadcast on. And yeah, enjoy the games today. Go Birds, and
Mhm.
enjoy the rest of your Sunday, whatever you have left.